Good evening, everybody. So, what if I were to tell you that today you had the opportunity to make a friend with someone anywhere in the world, regardless of geographic location, time zone, or even the language that they spoke? Well, one person that I know would be very happy to hear this would be this man right here. Now, this is Dr. Marshall McLuhan. And he is a communication theorist who came up with a lot of really great ideas and concepts in regards to popular culture and communication that we still use today. And one of his more famous ideas was this one that we would go through as humans 3 eras in the ways that we communicated. Now, the first one was that of spoken words. So it was the idea that all of our communication was based through speaking. Every time we did it, it was spoken, and so that kind of made us just stay more geographically isolated in the way that we could do that. And the second era was that of written word. So this is when we started being able to write things down, started being able to mass produce publishings, and we were able to spread them on a much wider basis. And the third era that he really conceptualized was that of the global village. Now, the global village concept was this idea that we would be able to eventually instantaneously communicate and share information anywhere in the world at any given time. And so he essentially kind of predicted the internet. And one way that I really see this coming into play nowadays too is with the rise of online gaming. Now, online gaming is something that's been becoming much more popular in recent history and is a way that we're realistically actually able to connect with people anywhere in the world at any given time in order to really do these things. So one way that I think we are able to really start making these bonds and connecting with others is through the narrative perspective. Now, the narrative perspective is this idea that all communication is based off of storytelling. Every single time you communicate with anybody at all, you're telling a story or listening to a story. Essentially, right now, I'm telling you all a story about the presentation that I'm currently giving. So what I did too was what I wanted to look at was one specific game, and it's one that I feel very familiar with and also happens to be the most commonly played online game in the entire world, and that is League of Legends. So, yeah, there we go. So first off, though, before we start talking about that, we have to understand, what exactly is League of Legends? Well, what it is it is a team-based game in which you have 2 teams, both of 5, and the entire kind of idea of it is to destroy the enemy team's nexus, which is essentially like their base. And in the game, you'll have 1 player in the top lane, 1 player in the middle lane, 2 people in the bottom lane, and 1 person in the jungle who kind of just roams around and helps out whoever needs help at any given time. So, as you can imagine, when this is going on, it's very essential for everybody to kind of do their own responsibilities and just work as a team. The better you work as a team, the better, the more successful you're going to be. And one way that you can do this is by communicating in-game. So you can do that by typing messages to each other. And although that is somewhat effective, sometimes you can leave your person in a dangerous position. Maybe it doesn't come out quick enough. So another much more popular way to do this is through what these guys are doing right here. And that is by the use of kind of these headsets where you can talk to each other and, like I said, really just communicate instantaneously, work much better as a team. And the most popular way to do this is through the Skype app, in which you can do the voice call option where there's no video being recorded, there's no face or picture, it's just talking to each other. And the thing is that once you start doing this, you start talking to people and you start meeting people. And the thing is that you have no idea where these people live, you have no idea what their day-to-day life consists of or anything like that, but you do know that they play the same game that you do. And this is where we can start bonding and start telling these stories, because say you're going to meet someone online and you start playing and you had a really good time, so you think, I'm going to add them to my friends list, maybe play some more in the future. And so you start playing and then one person says, hey, maybe we should Skype so we can work better as a team. And so you start Skyping and you start talking to them, and again, you have no idea where they are, you don't know where they live, what they do, but you can keep talking about the same related experiences. And one thing that I think is really effective in that way is this next theory, but first off, before that, I have a little activity. So if I could have a show of hands, if you think you know one of the characters up here, You feel like you understand them as an individual. You might know what they might think in a situation, or what they would say, or what's going through their head. Could you go ahead and raise your hand? Awesome. That's great to see. All right. So anybody who did raise their hand would be exhibiting something that's called parasocial interaction theory. Now, parasocial interaction theory is this idea that we create and develop these one-sided relationships with fictional characters that we think we know, that we think we understand. And like I said, this can come from a TV show, but just so you know, the actor is simply being directed on how to act. And so even though we feel like we know them, it is one-sided, but it does make a difference to us. And what I did was I kind of put this towards League. And so what I did was I used this man right here. This is Darius, and he's the first character that I really started playing in the game. So he's the first character that I really developed a relationship with and spent a lot of time with. So each character in the game has their own backstories, their own phrases, and their own voiceovers that really give us a little bit of insight into who they are as individuals. And so with his backstory, we know that he was orphaned as a child with his brother, Draven, who's another playable character who will come in handy later, and that he just very much values strength and courage and never backing down. And some ways that we can also get some insight into who he is through some of the phrases that he says while in-game, which are right here. So this first one, "They will regret opposing me." Well, obviously we can see that he's a little egotistical right here, okay? He thinks that whoever it is, it doesn't matter, whoever's going to go up against him, they are going to regret it, okay? They're going to have a bad time because he's Darius and he's awesome to him. And so this next one, "Scurry weakling." Well, the first one, scurry, that's kind of like a connotation of a rodent, almost like a scared little rat just running away. And weakling, very demeaning, kind of derogatory term towards someone weak, almost like an infant. So we know that for him saying this to you is like, run away, scared little rat, because you might as well, because it's Darius, and again, he's awesome. So, and this last one down here, "I do not tolerate cowardice." Well, obviously, as we can see, if you are going to be a coward, if you're going to be afraid at all, he is not going to have it. You might as well get out of his face because he's all about being strong, being courageous, going all out. So if you're not going to do that, just leave because he won't tolerate it. So, like I said, with all of these, this gives us a little bit more insight into who he is as an individual so that when we look at it again, we look at it with new eyes. This is not a generic character. This is not just some random person. This is Darius. There is no other person like him. And so when we do that, we really start to develop this relationship. And one way that this can happen is just through continuous exposure to that individual. And a way that you could see that happening would be through, say you were to play 3 games, and each game lasted 40 minutes long, and you played as Darius. Well then, essentially, you just spent 2 hours of your time working with this individual and trying to accomplish a mutual goal and going through many things on the way, in a way that after a while, this is less of a character and almost more of a comrade at arms. So when looking at that too, we can see how that can play into developing these relationships with others you meet online, because say I were to meet someone online and we start talking, and again, I have no idea who they are, where they're from, and they say, "Oh, my favorite character to play as is Draven." Well, I might take a step back and say, "That's interesting because my favorite character is Darius." And according to the backstory, we both know that Darius and Draven are brothers. So they already have this friendship and this relationship. And so now, because of this mutual shared friendship, this is going to get us to start off on a better foot and be able to start bonding, be able to start telling stories and relating to each other. And yes, obviously it is a fictional relationship, but it's real enough to make a significant difference in the way that we start to develop ours. So another cool thing about this that really plays into this whole global village concept is that everywhere in the world, anywhere you might play this game, it's the same game. It's the same characters, it's the same stats, same items, everything's the same. The only difference is the language that it's being presented in. However, if you can understand the common language of the game and understand what's going on, it doesn't matter what language it is. So because of that, we can see things like this start to happen. This is the World Championship held last year in Brussels, Belgium. And in it, you had teams from all over the world competing against each other, playing the same game. You had teams South Korea, Turkey, China, Europe, North America, Brazil, all over the world, all being able to play together on the same stage and being able to relate to each other. And also, another cool thing about this was that the overall viewership of this day was 36 million viewers, and the most at one time was 14 million. And to put that into a little perspective, the NBA Finals of the same exact year had an overall viewership of 24 million. So this was 1.5 times the amount of that. Just kind of going to show the legitimacy of online gaming and esports in general. And mind you, this would have been viewable anywhere on Earth that you might have an internet connection. If you could connect to the internet, you could stream this for free and check it out. And like I said, because it is that same game, if you can understand that, it doesn't matter who's commentating, it doesn't matter who's playing. You'll understand what's going on, and you'll be able to relate to anybody else who does and start telling each other stories about your experiences and what you really enjoyed about it. So with that, I'd like to tell you, consider this. Next time you're maybe looking to fill in some free time or even looking to make some new friends, go online. Check out a new game. There's tons out there. There's one for everybody. You really never know what you'll find, and each game has its own diverse community with people that you're going to start being able to talk to and relate to and understand. And for example, say you started with that one game, and you start meeting people, you start talking, you start telling stories and relating to each other, and then you realize, wait a minute, well, they also like some of these other games that I enjoy. They also play some of these, and you can start talking about those and relating to them, and then all of a sudden, well, wait a minute, it cascades, and and all of a sudden, you start talking about all these new games and all these other ones that you can start telling stories about and relating to. And mind you, you don't have to start in the middle. You could start on any one of these. You could start on a game that's not up here. But the whole point is that whichever game you start on, you're going to start meeting people. You're going to start creating these relationships, and you're going to start becoming part of this community that understands each other, that's global. So with that, I'd just like to say, next time you're looking for something to do, go online, check out a new game. Who knows? You might make a few new friends in a global village, complete with global gamers. Thank you.